Okay, thanks very much, Carwyn. In the interest of getting from here to the fizz as fast as possible, I will motor on. So firstly, thank you very much to Christian for agreeing to share the stage with us today. What we're going to talk about is mobile technology, and keep it very, very simple, very, very basic. So, something strange happened there. So the question is, we're in 2016. You know, it's ubiquitous. Mobile technology, surely it's done. We know when we ask the question of our customers, do they use, is mobile technology core to their lives? Of course it is. Well over 90%, as we saw in one of the earlier presentations, have mobile devices and use them daily in their working life. Doctors, nurses, across the board. So one of the questions is, how are we as an industry utilising mobile technology? How well do we embody the sort of concept of mobilisation and a sort of the digital engagement strategy in how we work with customers and how we can help ultimately that be more effective? One of the questions around creating this sort of service customer experience culture is this difference, and it's all gone a bit wrong there. The left-hand side is really looking at the commercial functions. The right-hand side is looking at the medical functions, and it's a very unequal relationship at the moment. Most of the emphasis is on the push from commercial rather than focusing on encouraging pull from the medical and clinical side of the organisations. We know mobile tech is embedded in healthcare. If we look at the sort of questions of how many HCPs, how many doctors, nurses, pharmacists, etc., have these devices and use them in their daily life. And this was a BMJ study, which was published at the end of last year. And when you're talking about, just a shade under 99% of doctors have a smartphone and use it in their life. And the way they use it's quite interesting. It's not just about, it doesn't have to be as sexy stuff and apps and things like that. It's really basic stuff. Phone calls, calendar, email, etc., messaging. This to an HCP is a central utility. It helps them run their life better. It helps them do their job better on a daily basis. So, and then when they look at sort of in clinical work, how useful is it? We're talking sort of that 64% for doctors, 57% for nurses say it's extremely helpful. So that's the backdrop. So when we think about the question of how do we utilise mobile technology as an industry, and how does that then translate to being able to work in a more effective way with our customers, this is the sort of backdrop. This is the expectation that customers have. This is their normal life. So we better meet up to it. One of the other assumptions in terms of the backdrop of how doctors and other health professionals view pharma is, and this was a study that Ipsos Mori did last year, was this question around some questions around sort of trust and the sort of value that doctors, other health professionals find in pharma. So when asked the question of should pharma take a leading role in developing apps and disease management tools, more people, a greater proportion, disagreed than agreed. And that highlights a pretty key message around trust. But importantly, 2/3 of them didn't have a clear view. They would see it on a case-by-case basis. They're not taking an absolute position, I trust pharma, I don't trust pharma. They'll say, based on where I am today, based on what I need, I'll make an assessment. Very similar situation is around face-to-face contact. Is that still going to be important to doctors, other health professionals going forward, that they are seeing a rep or an MSL face-to-face? More agreed than disagreed, but it was pretty tight. But what's very clear there is there's a very large group who are undecided. And to an organisation, a company like Veeva, that question about how do you better affect the chance of the majority, really the sort of near 2/3 of HCPs who aren't decided over will I or won't I see the person who's trying to see me, attend a meeting face to face, whatever it is, that will be based on the value that that individual and that company is delivering. So there's a lot to play for. So, the rumours of the rep's demise continue to be massively overstated. I'm going to hand over to Christian at this point.
Thanks, Chris. So we've heard kind of a bit of an HCP perspective and use of mobiles. Chris asked me just to share my experience from BI, and I've been with BI for nearly 18 years in sales and then moving into marketing over the last 4 years. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because you're all experienced people out there, but there's the word journey there again. I was just going to talk through for the next kind of 3 or 4 slides the sort of the BI journey just in terms of mobile tech. So in 2013, we launched iPads to our sales teams. So shiny new toy for them, but we launched the iPads a year before we launched the CRM system. Detailing our customers and HCPs from an iPad is a really different experience for both the representative and the HCP. So we gave the opportunity for the field teams to gain some experience. We trained them. We actually took them off the road for a day, staging, how to use an iPad. I remember when I was a representative, I think the advice was never to give the sales aid to the customer because otherwise we'd lose their call. Obviously, with iPad, it is somewhat different. So as I've alluded to, in 2014, we launched Veeva CRM, integrating the CLM and CRM system. Obviously, CLM in particular, obviously we're now able to track some of the detail aids in terms of pages used, etc., etc. And on that perspective, it was very much kind of emphasising to the sales teams that it's not something that we're tracking individuals. You've not used page 5. It was more from a kind of a national perspective, just to kind of emphasise and build in kind of future sales aids. Late 2015, we launched follow-up email. I don't know if anyone is familiar with, so Veeva brand it approved email, but we chose to call it follow-up email, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. And over the next kind of few years, obviously there's plenty more to come. Remote detailing, we're launching our customer hub in the next couple of months. So, just looking at the sales aid as one example, this is an example. Is essentially was a PDF. So this is when we first had iPads, both internally from a marketing perspective and externally from an agency perspective. It was probably relatively new to us both. So we chose literally to pick up kind of the sales aids as it was, put it into a PDF, and start the process from there. We've kind of then moved on. So as you can see from this image, it's a talking head from a respiratory physician up in Suffolk. The sales aids have got slightly more sophisticated, so talking heads and other kind of animations within there. And what we're looking to now is to produce health improvement models within the sales aids. Now, although health improvement models aren't necessarily revolutionary, what we're able to do now is obviously walk this through with the customer. So we're handing over the iPad to the customer, getting the customer to fill in the protocol, and obviously with the output of that, in this particular case it's a cost saving. The idea is that information will write back to the CRM system. We obviously are able to have that kind of information for ourselves, but we can also then email it back to the customer. So all this is kind of is not possible without mobile tech. So just let me skip through this. We did remove the build. So changing customer behaviour is the goal. Now, gone are the days of telesell. So this is a bit of a journey here. You can see Veeva CRM to begin with from a face-to-face perspective, follow-up email, HCP portal, which, as I said, we're launching in the next couple of months. As you can see, pretty much every touch point in here involves a kind of a piece of technology. And I think going back to the statistics of 91% of HCPs have a smartphone and use that smartphone, I guess this is kind of critical. So, just to kind of summarise, certainly my experience so far in BI, we did things relatively slowly to begin with, depicted slowly catch a monkey. I think pace has gathered over the last few months, but I think the idea is that we kind of launched new platforms, ensured that the field teams were engaged in those platforms before we kind of introduced new ones. And that takes us to the next picture from a representative. I think Chris has alluded to the fact that the kind of scaremongery around face-to-face activities declining. I looked at some stats yesterday regarding kind of the numbers of representatives in the US. Although there was a big decline 4 or 5 years ago, the number of representatives today is the same as it was 5 years ago. So it's kind of the previous time before that was a big decline, but the numbers stayed pretty static. So what I'm trying to say with that is that we've used the reps to kind of orchestrate some of the mobile technology. So we've obviously got what we call ICE champions within the field teams, and we're using those guys to obviously drive adoption with their colleagues, but obviously as a feedback loop. That's not rocket science. I don't think anything I'm talking about is rocket science. And you can just see some sort of statistics at the bottom here. This is not from Boehringer. This is at an industry level. Just in particular, looking at kind of the third statistic down. So physicians who preferred digital detailing. So in 2011, that statistic was 50%. 2015, that statistic is 75%. So obviously, we're doing something right with those customers. We've obviously got used to the technology ourselves, and obviously enabling that to kind of drive better customer experiences. Chris?
Thanks very much, Christian. So if we look at this question of sort of what is the role of mobile technology in pharmaceutical organisations, when it's used well, it underpins customer engagement. You know, as we've seen in the example with Boehringer, what their reps are doing around the sort of face-to-face activity and the ability in call to be able to share that content that's been discussed with the customer, maybe, you know, the health improvement model, share the results, share, that, you know, in you know, there and then with the customer, they can see it arrive in their inbox. One of the challenges that we see, you know, within our clients is, in terms of customer organisations, we still exist in a very fractured space. There are many different teams who are customer facing, either directly or indirectly. And one of the challenges around as a CRM provider is how do you provide an environment, a platform which enables all of those to be brought together so that the activities that a medical team are doing are visible, obviously at a safe level in terms of disclosure, but are visible to other parts of the organisation and vice versa. So actually sort of putting some flesh on the bones of sort of old key account management concept. One of the important things is these are all mobilised channels. The customers aren't, you know, they might be sitting behind a desk in an office. Often they're going to be on the wards, in practice, you know, out and about. They want to be able to engage, you know, as and when they choose to. So they set the pace, they set the criteria for how you want to engage. Being able to take those capabilities out into the field are a vital step forward. You know, the fact that you can do some pretty amazing stuff, you know, in a marketing department, you know, back at head office is one thing. Being able to do that in the field and for it to be a seamless experience both for your staff and your customers is a huge step towards you know, using mobile technology as a real enabling capability. The final point is, you know, the customer environment provides for context around this. So whether it's market access, working with stakeholders, payer leaders and the like, MSLs, you know, reps at a specialty general level, whatever it needs to be, they will engage with different players in that environment. And if that's not coming together in a sort of a single integrated cohesive view, then, you know, you haven't got the full picture. And you'll never be able to make the sort of, you know, decisions that you need to make. What should we be doing for our customers next to sort of push forward on our plans? A great example is, I did take all the animation off. A great example is medical affairs. And this is a space which we're seeing, you know, enormous change going on at the moment in terms of moving from a very simple service model of, you know, MSLs, medical information teams responding to questions, really over here, this sort of disease state and management goals level, and how do companies sort of work with their customers on this journey to a point where they are helping them address outcomes about therapeutic activity and what their aspirations are as clinicians for their patients. For the clinicians, they are mobile. So the way that you engage with them has to be on their terms, and it has to utilise these sort of mobile capabilities. There are some bits which are supposed to be there. I don't know where they've gone. So finally, where are we now? We know we are making rapid progress. If we look at across our customer base, the degree to which they are taking advantage of what the technology can deliver, what the platform can deliver, has moved enormously in the last couple of years. The last 12 months, we've seen at Veeva a very rapid acceleration of the use of tools like follow-up email, or rep-triggered email, or approved email, as we call it. That is a connecting point. That enables when you're with a customer, you can then connect them to the next step. In the case of what BI is doing around their ICE, their customer hub, it's that sort of next stage in the journey. Adapting to mobile technology can't be undervalued. You can't just go from 0 to 100, 0 to sort of effective overnight. It is a different way of working both with the content and with your customers. They have a different relationship with the content because of the way it's been delivered. It seems obvious enough, but we know lots of organisations which have just rolled out iPads and expected the reps to be as effective as they were when they had their trusted old paper detail aid. Or in the medical space, moving 800-page slide decks onto an iPad and expecting it to sort of, just magically all be fine. So it takes work to sort of get through that adaptation stage. But by doing it, as BI have done, you move to adoption and you move to integration. It's part of the journey. In the nicest possible way, customers do not care about what you think. They only care about what they think and what they need. And it gets said again and again and again, this is very much demand driven. They will set the demand, they will set the criteria about how they want to engage, what they're looking for, be it search, whatever it is. The success of the physician platforms, Medscapes, M3s of the world, is testament to the importance of being able to get what I want to a group like doctors. And we have to be able to sort of, as an industry, work with that. So the fact that, we know that the customers have this very real experience of the value of mobilisation to their own working lives. We all do it. We've got, things on wrists and things in bags and things in pockets. That's normal for us. And, we know, we keep getting reminded that is also normal for our customers. It also needs to be normal for how we work internally, for our systems and processes, how we join those up so that customer is an enterprise obsession. It's not about sales. It's not about marketing. It's not about medical, not about market access, sort of fighting for their own agenda. It's about joining those up and having a cohesive approach as a platform to how we work with customers. Thank you.
Chris, a question for you first. You brought a pharma client with you today, right? BI, Christian, thanks very much. Why are they good?
I think they're good because they're on a journey. Because they don't, talking with Christian, I speak with Christian quite a lot. They're always interested in learning more. It's not a case of saying, right, what we've got is, we think it's the latest and greatest, and don't need to really challenge that. I know that they challenge their agencies in terms of what they're trying to deliver, and always are trying to sort of look at what we're doing and how can we learn from that, how can we do it better. So I think it's, that's part. We know at a corporate level, BI have, and they've spoken about this in the public, so there's no issues. They've adopted platforms like approved email globally. And they're probably, we look one of our sort of real early adopters of that kind of technology. So they recognise the importance of being able to connect what they're doing out in the field with what their customers want to be able to connect with beyond that. So it's not just, I do the call, then I do the call, then I do the call. There's very much more, there's a lot in between.
And Christian, same question for you. Obviously, Veeva are doing a pretty good job at the moment, but why Veeva? Why not some of the other platforms? What are your... You say something nice, of course, but what...
I could tell you the truth that I didn't have any choice about it. It's a global decision. But I guess following on from the question before, just in terms of we are trying to push the boundaries. The brands that we work in some really busy areas, cardiovascular, diabetes, and respiratory and oncology. So it's obviously extremely busy markets, and I think, not blowing Veeva's trumpet, I think 18 out of the top 20 pharma companies use Veeva. So we're not alone in the fact that we use Veeva. I think I've got a rather cheesy slide that I present to our new interns, our new representatives, around it's a toolbox. You know, Veeva is a tool. It's not the tool itself. It's actually how we use it. So that's what we are trying to push the boundaries a little bit. You know, sometimes it's slow progress because sometimes we have to go through global approval for various different things. But what we can do in the UK is try to at least kind of be at that table when approached. So
We'll do a couple of questions if anyone's got any. There will be a panel discussion, but yeah, one at the back.
Hello, I'm Kim from Takeda. You talk a lot about mobile being in the pockets of all healthcare professionals. Have you had any real successes with remote detailing, and where, you know, reps are almost on call or even book appointments and do remote detailing? And who does it very well? To both.
Yes. Yeah, we have a number of clients now who are predominantly looking at it from a hybrid capacity. So how do they take either existing teams and give them a new set of capabilities, a new set of tools that they can access, or, and probably one of the more interesting ones for us, is looking at parts of the business like non-promoted brands, you know, commercial brands teams who have had, you know, little or no promotional capability, other than maybe some sort of advertising or just, you know, basic above the line work, and saying, you know, how can they give them, you know, put some resource in and then use, you know, remote platforms to help engage with their customers who might not have been seen for, you know, quite a significant point of time. It doesn't take away the challenges of access, but by being able to sort of do that and leverage the content that exists already, you know, a lot of these are sort of, you know, long promoted brands, content might need to be reapproved. It is very much, we see it as being, you know, in the sort of face-to-face, in sort of one-to-one or one-to-many meetings, sort of calls and meeting space, as being a topic high on a lot of people's agendas, but also in the sort of more larger meetings around conferences and events and things like that, as being, you know, the whole concept of virtual meetings as becoming, becoming much more to the fore.
Christian, do you want anything to add?
I think that's something we're exploring. We had 3 organisations in last week to pitch for remote detailing. I know that our Vet Medica business have done remote detailing particularly successfully, and I don't know whether that's to do with the large geographies that the Vet Medica representatives have, or the kind of availability of vets in terms of getting called out at various different times. I guess that's sometimes no different to GPs, but it's obviously something we're exploring, remote MSL on top of that. But I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that the technology is right before we kind of implement that. So I think it's a slow process. I think it's something we want to pilot with some of the teams, and obviously once we're confident that we're confident with the technology and also it works for our customers, I think that's when we'll probably expand it a bit more.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys. We'll join the panel discussion after, but thank you very much.